Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima and I'm here checking out Gundam Breaker 3. Been waiting a long time for this one, I tell ya. And, well, we'll just have to get into the game to talk about it, won't we? Well, first, I'm going to be spending a lot of time in menus. Like, I'm going to be spending a ton of time showing you around all the stuff that's in Gundam Breaker 3's menus, because they have actually significantly changed things up from Gundam Breaker 1 and 2. Which, oddly enough, is strange, because Gundam Breaker 2 changed things up a lot from 1, but anyway. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time in the menus. I'm going to put, like, a time code somewhere if you want to skip straight to the gameplay, but considering how much they've changed in this game, I wouldn't recommend skipping forward. I'd recommend sticking around and listening to what I have to say. But anyway, let's just hit continue, and as always... Well, not as always. Come on, go away, please. I don't need the PlayStation Network at the moment. As always, we're dropped into the hangar. Not that different from Gundam Breaker 2's, but, I mean, it's a hangar. What do you expect? So... I am a female avatar at the moment, and yes, my analog sticks are still broken. I am a female avatar at the moment, and while I will admit most of the female game character design crap that's going on in the industry lately is a bit overblown, that costume really must ride up into her ass crack. That must be really uncomfortable. But anyway, for some reason there's a button here that lets you raise and lower the platforms. Like, I'm not entirely sure why that's there. I haven't tried online multiplayer, but I imagine it's about the same as single player, honestly, so it's not really that big of a deal. It would make the game relatively easier as well. Also, I do like all the ads that are going on in the background. Like, there was a Tri-Burning Gundam there, there was a Zaku there. For some reason they advertise real grades a lot more than they advertise HGs or MGs, because there are no real RGs in this mode. But anyway, so we got a few things we can go to here. We got the shop, which is about the same as it was before, but we'll go have a look anyway, because there is some interesting stuff that goes on in here. Thank you very much for actually loading at some point. Game's loading times are actually overall improved, because they tend to connect to the internet a lot more, so it makes it a bit more of a pain in the ass. So yeah, you can come here to buy HGs and MGs as you would expect. I've already got half of the available MGs. That's not fantastic considering I'm only in Chapter 3. You can also come here to buy builder's parts. Builder's parts are quite interesting. But we'll get to how these are interesting later. You can also come here for different suits. And most of these are references to different Gundam series. Because I recognize this one, I think it was. Yeah, I recognize this one because it was... God, I can't remember her name. I've recently watched Gundam 79, so I know who that's from. I just can't remember her name. But anyway, yeah, the shop's the same as it's always been, except you've got builder parts there now. Now, this is where things start to get interesting. You've got two different sets of types of missions you can go on, like in Gundam Breaker 2. However, they're quite different. So, in this one here, in the globe, you've got different... Wow, did I really get all the ace points I need to get to the next mission? I guess I did. Anyway, you've got this general set of missions here. So they're done in chapters, and they're not done in a spread out format like they were in Gundam Breaker 2. You have just a general straight on set of missions to go through. And you've got all your different types of enemies down the bottom right, depending on what you've cleared. And as you can see, these two missions here don't have enemies because they're made entirely of player units. We'll get into that. You've also got sections of the game where it splits off into different levels of missions and, well, different kinds of missions. And you have to beat them and get the ace points from them to get onto the next level. But otherwise, the ace points in this game have become almost completely useless. So, unless you're going on a series of missions where you need to get a high amount of ace points in order to continue on to the next mission, you really don't need to worry about getting ace points anymore, which admittedly is kind of nice, because ace points were a little bit of a pain in the ass to get. They weren't too bad, but I mean, you don't have any post-mission objectives anymore to do to get resources and rewards, so you don't have to worry about them. So you've also got different difficulties. Now, the heads-up display indicates there are at least 5 difficulties, which the trophy list doesn't indicate. The 4 different difficulties I know of are Casual, Standard, Hardcore, and New Type. Now, Casual and Standard drop the same loot, but Standard's harder. Hardcore is a lot harder, and you unlock New Type, I think, at the end of the game, but I'm not entirely certain about that because I haven't looked it up. The different difficulty modes are actually pretty different. Like, Standard is pretty brain-dead hack and slash. Like, if you like Dynasty Warriors, you'll probably end up liking this mode. But Hardcore is definitely where things get interesting, and I haven't beaten a hardcore mission yet because I just don't have the parts, I don't have the health, I don't have the attack I need to get through these missions, anything less than an hour and a half, while using all my repair items. So, I've just been playing through on standard. However, hardcore does drop better loot. So, if you want a better loot experience straight away, hardcore might be your choice, but at the same time, you'll be weak as a baby kitten. So I would not suggest going through and playing through on hardcore straight away. Maybe after you've gone through the majority of standard. There are 5 chapters, and to get the platinum trophy, they expect you to play through every difficulty on all 4 extra difficulty types, or at least all 3 up to new type. I don't think the 5th difficulty is required, but like look at the 5 dots up there and tell me there's not a 5th difficulty type in there somewhere. But anyway, we won't go through with that right now. We'll come over and check out the second set of mission types when the game loads. Unfortunately, this is probably going to be a really long load time at the moment because the game just really likes really long load time. So anyway, there are 2 new types of missions over here. We've got the Bounty Hunter and we've got the Challenger. The Challenger is an endless, well, not so much an endless survival mode, but just you can beat up everything and you'll get ace points towards your leaderboard score, and you'll also get GP, which is unfortunate because Challenger is actually completely useless. I just said completely twice. It's completely useless because you can earn parts, GP, and ace points just by going anywhere else in the game. So coming to Challenger mode just doesn't really make any sense unless you really want to grind your leaderboard. Bounty Hunter is definitely more interesting because now this is going to take about 30 seconds to load. I can explain the whole thing before the menu even comes up. Basically, player units are uploaded to the server every now and again, and you can actually fight them. And the AI is actually really difficult to deal with. It's surprisingly hard because they do a lot of damage, and they'll end up going through and just basically kicking your ass. So you need to be very well prepared for them. But once you've taken, you need to fight 2 at once, but once you've taken out 1, it actually gets really easy to take out the other just by stun locking them. And you'll learn GP, you'll learn parts. So if you want parts from like the Gundam Barbatos, which you get in the first print, but if you're not on a Japanese PlayStation Network account, you won't be able to get it anyway. If you want the Barbatos parts, coming here and finding a unit that has the Barbatos parts is a good way to get those parts. But really, the only thing that's worth getting from the Barbatos is the mace, and the mace is just amazing to play with. But nevertheless, the game is still loading, which is unbelievable, by the way. This is going to take ages, isn't it? But yeah, the main mode of Bounty Hunter is just to go through and just earn lots of cash. Like, some fights I earned like 20 to 30,000 GP, which to be fair isn't too bad considering the amount of money you usually earn from this. However, for some reason I could not determine, I earned 100,000 GP in one fight, which is actually a really useful amount of money. I really don't understand what it is that caused me to earn so much money from that, but we won't actually be playing any of the arena fights because the sorts of situations that come up in this game, in this mode, I should say, also come up in the main story mode. But yeah, as you can see, well, as you won't be able to see because the bloody 3D models tend not to load after the first one. But yeah, as you can see, there are a bunch of different ones and they're all like have custom names and stuff like that. So if you ever find mine on here, let me know, and you can actually take screenshots in this game. Sorry, epilepsy people. If you actually see my Gundam here, take a screenshot and let me know, because, you know, that'd be interesting. But considering that most people probably won't be importing this version for reasons they'll get into later, well, yeah. So, here's the hangar. The hangar is arguably the most interesting part of Gundam Breaker 3. And I love this music. Like, it sounds like a remix of something I heard in Gundam Breaker 2, and this could just be like the music that plays in my penthouse during a party. I don't own a penthouse and I'd never host a party, but you get the idea. So, yeah, I'm sorry, I just love this music. It just gets me every time, but anyway. So they've simplified how assembling Gundams work this time around. I'll go over everything else before I get into the armaments, because this game gets awfully complicated when we get into that. But yeah, anyway. You can change the paint job of any part of the Gundam, as you would expect. Unfortunately, I can't change my... Well, I can change my shield's pattern, but it's only because I'm actually using a shield that doubles as a Gatling gun, which, admittedly, is the coolest thing ever. But yeah, so you can change every single part of what your Gundam's painted like. And even better, if you tap the screen, they've actually got a bunch of preset paint jobs that you can use for every part of the Gundam. So if I go back to the entire unit, see, I can change the paint job to anything I like, and I've been using this theme right here. But yeah, you can change the paint job, and it actually gives you some really good ideas for what you want to go for. So I ended up picking the third preset, and then just changing the God Gundam's backpack, because that's what this main model is, I'm sorry. I ended up changing this Gundam's backpack to the Wing Zero? Or is it the Gundam Zero Wing or the Wing Zero? Oh, bloody hell. It's a Gundam Wing of some kind. I ended up changing it to the Gundam Wing. And it just looks awesome. Like, just after a bit of red I splattered all over the place. It looks awesome. The amount of effort it takes to get a good looking unit in this game is actually really low, and I really like it. So, it's not that advanced, and we'll show off just like how, what the word I'm looking for is, how limited it is to get like bonus parts onto this thing it is in a minute. But, I mean, for something that's really low effort, like this game, for something that's really low effort, for something to have come out really awesome, it's actually great. And you've also got the photograph. You saw that my Gundam and its pose was the background of the hangar. Well, we can actually do that with all sorts of different poses, and we can even change the weapons that I'm holding. So, like, I can make it so I'm holding nothing, or I'm holding my Gatling gun in an extremely awkward pose that wouldn't be possible in real life. But yeah, it's pretty damn awesome. So you can change pretty much everything. Unfortunately, I can't seem to change the fact, I can't change it to hold my shield and my thing at the same time. Also, I've noticed that you can actually take a picture and upload it to Gundam Perfect Games and actually get a download, but I haven't bothered to do that. You can also come here to change your SD Gundam. So, you have an SD hanger, which lets you pick between the different variations they have. Unfortunately, they don't have, like, customizing and building just like they do in the main game, but you can come here to pick what SD Gundam you want. I don't think there's a difference between them, except their proficiency, and their proficiency just shows how well they obey your commands and all that. You can also come down here to let it load, it never takes long, to change the paint on your SD Gundam. So yeah, that's pretty obvious. And I did mean to go into SD selection, my mistake. That's going to take a little bit to load, isn't it? Because it always does. You can also come down here to your SD module and change how they behave. Now, when you've got maximum proficiency, that's when you unlock all 3 slots. And these 6 slots are just general behaviors. Like, one's go on the attack, one's be defensive, one's be healing, one has work on breaking parts, etc, etc, etc. So, you can change how your SD Gundam behaves. Also, they're adorable. They're the size of you, which is even better. But yeah, they're adorable. Anyway, let's actually get into assembling shit, because I've spent like 13 minutes in this game and I haven't gotten into the main parts customization yet, so this is going to take a while. So here's how parts customization works in Gundam Breaker 3. In Gundam Breaker 2, you had to level up every part individually using plastics and other parts you find in the world. Now, this has changed significantly. So, every single part, by default, some of the spawn parts you have different like attack ratings and all that, but there are some parts that have every single part at every single level. So every part that has no abilities on it from 1 through to 30, or whatever the blade hold's going to be, has the exact same attack strength. So now, it doesn't matter if you're using a level 12 part, or a level 12 melee attack, or a level 12 sword. It will always generate with the same attack. However, they've added this new ability system. So this ability system, you get abilities based on the rarity of the part you get in the main game. So there are several types of rarities, and if I press triangle, you can see the different rarity colors here. There's green, there's blue, there's purple, and there's rarely any blues, which is weird. There's purple, and there's gold, which give different kinds of abilities. So as you can see down there in my abilities, you can see what would happen if I de-equipped the current weapon I have and replaced it with the weapon that I've got now. And you can merge these parts together. So if I wanted to do that, I could press square on this weapon. Now, there are 4 different kinds of merging. There's pair, package, plastic, and derive. Pair merging is what you do if you want to actually migrate abilities. So if I wanted to, say, let's say I merge this saber Now, I can take these abilities here and remove them, and I can also remove these abilities here. And I can also... See, these abilities also merge into each other. So if I press square right now, it'll merge these abilities together. So now I've got a Lance that's level 6 compared to when it was level 5 with these new abilities down here. You can also do package merging, which is basically just taking every single part that you have no uses for anymore and merging them into the new unit. So if I were to merge these parts, I'd go from level 6 to level 8. And it would give me more attack strength, obviously. And it would, it would keep the abilities roughly the same. Now, pair merging is the only way to get abilities across. So package merging is useful for getting rid of a lot of spare parts, or you could just select a lot of them and sell them all and get money from that. Plastic merging. Enemies drop plastic like they do in Gundam Breaker 2, but this time around, it's just pure experience items. So, if I apply, say, 100, or if I apply, 300 plastic here, I could upgrade to level 13. Unfortunately, I can't do that, because money is actually pretty useful in this game, but we'll get to that. You can also apply cubes to everything. Cubes are somewhat rare, they're kind of rare, and they also have their own abilities. Thankfully, if you actually apply an ability that has... If you've already got this ability on this part, you'll actually upgrade the part immediately. If you do a pair merge of a part with a piece that already has that specific ability on it, it'll actually just upgrade that ability. And if you don't have a specific high ability, see how it only has 2206, but the part already has 3663 of this ability, well, it'll just upgrade it by a couple of pixels worth. But if you upgrade with a ability that's higher, it'll upgrade to that ability and then some, so it's worth it. And these abilities are things like faster EX, higher ability to break parts off, higher DPS for your weapons, for specific weapons, so that's actually a specific weapon there, etc, 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 etc. It's pretty obvious. And then you've also got Derive Merge, which to me honestly makes no sense. I didn't mean to do that. Derive Merge, pick a part, pick another part, and then they make a completely different part with the abilities of the first two. Might make more sense once the game's in English, but yeah, it's a little bit annoying, honestly. So yeah, you've got all these different parts and you have to merge them. This makes credits a hell of a lot more useful, because despite the fact that I entered this game with 500,000 credits because I imported my save from Gundam Breaker 2, I'm almost flat broke already. That's a hell of a sign, because you need to spend a lot of money to be upgrading your parts at this point in the game, or be swapping them out like a madman. It's really expensive to upgrade your unit, but at the same time, this new system makes it so that you can take whatever the hell you want along with you. Gundam Breaker 2 was a lot better about this than Gundam Breaker 1 was. Gundam Breaker 1 made it so that there were a bunch of specific suits that had the best endgame abilities, bar none. So you couldn't really customize your strongest Gundam. In Gundam Breaker 2, they changed this so that while you could take along a lot of parts to the endgame, it would cost a lot of money in plastic and materials to get there. Gundam Breaker 3 has changed it so that all you need to get to the endgame is a lot of spare parts, a lot of money, and a lot of plastic. A lot of which you get in every single mission. So it really doesn't matter. To get to the end of the game with anything you want, all you need to do is grind a little bit. Grind a little bit on whatever levels you please, because that's all you need to do. And that is actually really, really good, because Gundam Breaker has always felt stuck in between trying to be an action RPG where the loot is very determinant of how you play, and just turning into a sort of Diablo grindathon sort of thing. And they finally made a decision where they decided to go with the Diablo side of things, only with Japanese fighting robots, which arguably makes the game a hell of a lot better. In my personal opinion, the game's a hell of a lot better for finally deciding to go with this angle. Now, 20 minutes in, and we're finally getting to an actual mission. Now, one thing I forgot to explain while I was here, see these exclamation points? These are hotspots. These hotspots actually change what Gundam are in this mission, which is really, really interesting, because, I played one of the Chapter 1 missions because it had a hotspot on it. The hotspot changed the final Gundam that you fought from a new Gundam to a high new Gundam. which was definitely interesting. So if you're looking for specific parts and you haven't found them yet, try going back and playing a hotspot mission. We won't be playing a hotspot mission. There are plenty of different types of missions too. Like, a lot of the missions are just go through and just beat the hell out of everything like Gundam Breaker 2 was. But there are different kinds of missions. Like, for example, Monolith Demolition, which is new, kind of, where you go through, you beat up waves of enemies, and you destroy the monolith, which is guarded by waves of enemies. It's very simple, obviously. Battle Royale, which is just a bunch of fights against a bunch of player units. It has more player units than it is before. There's Team Deathmatch as well, which has a lot of different enemy types come in that are players as well. And you've also got the Battle Royale, which is the which is a bunch of just, you know, other players coming in as well. And the Core Assault, which again is other players defending the, what's the word I'm looking for? A gigantic core, and then you have to go and assault their core. Oh, no, let me try that again. You defend your core, then you assault their core, right? There we go. So, I'm gonna play something like Monolith Demolition though, because it shows up other enemy players anyway. You can also press square to, yeah, you also press square to do that, and you can also press triangle to choose what members you want to take along with you, but I don't see any detriment to going with these guys. So, let's go play some Monolith Demolition, and I can explain how this game, how the game's actual hack and slashy bits have changed. Spoiler, really hasn't. There's the main story protagonist, and there's the SD Gundam. I've got a few of these coming in, and they look adorable. Like, look at those eyes. Those eyes are amazing. But anyway, let's hold start and get into it. Thankfully, they don't have that much extra loading times in this game. And as always, this is the control screen where you can do all your control stuff. You'll be seeing the left analog stick moving somewhat strangely, because that's just what happens, unfortunately. You do have the launching sequence from Gundam Breaker 2, but I'll just be skipping that. So here we go. This is Gundam Breaker 3. It's not that different from 2. So you've got a light attack and a heavy attack, and these can be changed into specific kinds of attacks. You've also got a boost mode. So if you hit X, you'll start boosting around the place. Also, you'll jump, but if you hold it, you'll boost. And you've got a limited amount of boost. You have a long-range weapon. These can differ in different ways. So right now, I've got a chain gun on my left arm, but there are different weapons you can take along with you. Like there's the General Gundam beam rifle from UC, where you can press L to shoot a normal shot, or you can hold L to do a charge shot. And there are multiple different kinds of weapons, both physical and melee and ranged, that do different things. So you'll eventually find yourself customizing to a specific kind of weapon, which is really quite nice. Because, again, with the way they've modified this so that you can take literally any part you feel like through to the end of the game just by doing a little bit of grinding here and there if you need to, it's really, really enjoyable. And hell, you can even grind on the Battle Royale and get yourself on the leaderboards. Well, not the Battle Royale, the Bounty Hunter, I should say. You can grind on the Bounty Hunter modes. I'm not going to get into that vehicle just yet. Someone's going to get into it, though, and try and run my shit down. But nevertheless, I'm going to do it anyway, and there's my monolith. But yeah. So you do have they have, let me try this again. They have made the game a hell of a lot more user-friendly. Attacks chain into each other a lot more easily now, and it is a lot easier to just, you know, get on a roll of just bashing the shit out of dudes. And it's just an obvious improvement, except it'll take you a little while to feel it. So it's not, maybe it's not that obvious, but at the same time, you will notice that the game is a hell of a lot more fluid and dynamic. What isn't a lot more fluid is the game's frame rate, unfortunately. The game's frame rate can slow to a bloody single digit, eventually. Especially when you're fighting, like, a big boss unit that has a lot of effects on it. The game's frame rate just tanks. It absolutely tanks. And it's such a disappointment, too, because Gundam Breaker 2 actually performed really well. And this game actually looks pretty damn good. Like, it might not look fantastic because you're looking at it, like, blown up to 1080p when it's supposed to be, like, 544p. But the game itself is a lot better. Gundam Breaker 2 had a lot of problems with, like, blurry textures and stuff like that. This game solved most of those problems, and it looks really good. Unfortunately, it's just a bit of a pain in the ass because it just runs so terribly sometimes. The controls don't really take that much of a beating from it, but at the same time, it's still just a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for, just a little bit disappointing. There are also crates. They're back from Gundam Breaker 2, but instead, this time, they drop parts and plastic. So you want to go and actually find those crates now, because this game still has not so much an over-reliance as a... You're going to be carrying a lot of healing items either way, so you might as well use the healing items you got. I might as well also get into the EX actions for those of you who've never played Gundam Breaker before, but you've got 4 instead of 3 now, so you can have a lot more varied EX actions, and I've actually got a really good selection here of different kinds of EX actions. So I've got an EX action that's bound to my sword. That was what the EX action was. And that is a nice little thing because I've got a bunch of abilities that make my EX abilities charge really fast. So I can just use this EX ability like every 10 hits, which is really useful, admittedly. I've also got EX abilities that are locked to this Gundam. This is a God Gundam. And I imported this from Gundam Breaker 2. I just thought I might as well take along a God Gundam and see what it's like. And I know it's a bit of blasphemy not to have a God Gundam using his fists, but the EX actions do that for me. So this is an attack based on his EX, which is amazing, by the way. I think that's the Shining Finger, because the end game partner in Gundam Breaker 2 would yell, "Shining Finger!" all the time, and it would get really annoying. But this time the AI partners are actually really quiet, so they do speak sometimes, but they're not that much of a mouthful. There are also other things that they've done to increase the game's quality of life. For example, they've actually made a shooting mode, which is really interesting, because you can literally play this game as a third-person shooter if you want. Unfortunately, it does knock you out into melee if you get hit, and the game's weapons, while most of them have more ammo, they tend to recharge for a lot longer too. So you probably want to be a bit careful about your ammo conservation. So it is an interesting system either way. There is also stepping. In Gundam Breaker 2, to step, you had to use you had to shield with the R button while pressing the X button. Thankfully, they've actually changed this in Gundam Breaker 3. So now, in order to step, all you need to do is tap the R button, and you'll do a dodge. And that is really useful. Like, it actually makes stepping a viable alternative to just getting the hell out of the way. It's really nice. And I really do like it. It's a massively improved change. Awakening hasn't changed much. You just tap the bottom middle of the screen, you go Awakening, and you just have a lot of attacks on you. So, you gain health back, you do more damage, and you have more likeliness to break off the enemy's parts. I'm also going to go Hyper Mode here, which is another EX action, which makes me move even faster. So I'm just beating the shit out of everything and loving it. Unfortunately, I missed with my EX attack. And I just got an exclusive long rifle, which is interesting. So, yeah, the game's focus on loot really shines through now, because breaking parts in Gundam Breaker 2 wasn't as important, because it was kind of random what parts came out at the end anyway once you destroyed the enemy. But now, every time you break a part off, there's a chance of it spawning next to its body. So you can literally just be breaking the guy with every time you finish an attack combo, you could be breaking this guy's strength. And you could be just spawning parts out of him like a fucking pinata. And it is glorious. It's so much loot all the time, and it's so satisfying when you get a purple or a blue or a green out, because it means you've got a potential ability that you can apply to your own guy. Or you can be working on like 2 or 3 suits at the same time, and you can be applying abilities to all of them. It's just great. Just beating the shit out of them like it's a birthday party and I get all the presents is magnificent. And the fact that you get so much plastic for leveling up stuff too is even better. It's a wonderful feeling, honestly, to beat the shit out of all these different kinds of Gundam and get so much parts and money from them. It's so good. They've just, with the combination of being able to just mash the square and triangle buttons, at least on the standard mode, and get so many rewards for it, is just amazing. It really taps into the Schrodinger's box. Not the Schrodinger's box. I think it was something else. Schrodinger's cat. The Skinner box, I mean. It taps into the Skinner box formula so heavily but it's actually not like a game like Clash of Clans or something like that. I've actually been playing a lot of Clash Royale lately, but it's actually pretty good. But this game here uses a sort of Skinner box mentality with an actually interesting melee system, which is actually like really difficult to get a hang of if you don't have really good parts. So, at least on the higher difficulties. If you want to play this game as just a mindless button masher on the standard difficulty, go right ahead. You can do that. You want to go through the hardcore and new type and whatever the 5th difficulty is and beat the shit out of stuff and actually feel skilled while doing it, you can do either of those. And the fact that the game caters to both of these audiences is a really good sign that they actually know what they're doing. And the fact that I can sit back and enjoy myself and then go and play a harder difficulty later on when I really want to have a challenge and when my analog stick isn't fucking broken, then I can do that. And I can enjoy myself in the process, and it's great. But yeah, the game is really, really good at what it does, despite the fact that the frame rate is complete shit. And hopefully I'll be able to show off an enemy player at some point. And if no enemy players come up, I'll go do a couple of rounds in the bounty hunter mode. But yeah, the game is really, really good at what it does, and it's extremely satisfying to play through this game, even on just standard difficulty, and beat the shit out of people and get new paths to just destroy guys with. It's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. You get so many parts, and you can do so much with them, and it's just so satisfying. I just love beating the shit out of this. All the different weapons are really satisfying. I've tried the whips, I've tried melee, I've tried lances, I've tried everything, and it's all so nice. Then again, I might have had good luck bringing in the God Gundam, but then again, you can buy the God Gundam straight up in this game for 30,000 GP. You get 30,000 GP in one mission, so if you want what I'm doing, bloody God Gundam is what you want. Okay, here we go. Here are the enemy players. This is where things get even more interesting. So, enemy players are AI controlled, obviously, but they're made of random parts and random paint jobs. So the most interesting thing about them is that you can get parts from enemies that aren't even in this stage. Gundam Breaker 3 had, Gundam Breaker 2, sorry, had set enemies and set stages. This game has enemy players, which mean not only can you get really rare parts, you can get them from completely different kinds of enemies that you haven't seen yet. Which is brilliant. It's a brilliant idea because you can play on the bounty hunter leaderboards and get parts purely that way. Which is great. You can play through in this mode and get parts based on shit you've seen, or you can play through and play for the enemy players who have a ton of different parts to do, because there are missions in this game that are entirely focused on enemy players. So if you want lots of different parts, you can just play through those missions over and over again, and you'll get a ton of different. There's a cube. You can get a ton of different enemies with a ton of different parts, and they'll always be attacking you with different weapons. So there's at least some variety in how you deal with these enemies. My analog stick is really fucking me up here. I'm trying to get to this guy. There we go. So you can get a ton of different parts off these guys, and it just adds to that feeling of getting a ton of loot and doing your best to break as much off these bastards as possible. It is a ton of fun in this game to not only play the Diablo-ish loot grind, but just to beat the shit out of everything. And this is what Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors need to learn to do better. Make your outer game as satisfying as your inner game. Oh man, I keep forgetting to show off my EX action, but my EX action is basically... The EX action is something you can do when if you get rid of the rest of your awakening meter, which is the meter down the bottom. It's basically the Kamehameha, but yellow, and it breaks everything. And it just makes a shower of parts appear everywhere. This game, and the games before it, also sell luck boosters on the PlayStation Network, but you don't need them. You do not need the luck boosters to actually do pretty well in this game. I've heard of a lot of people complaining that it takes ages to get through missions, and it takes like 45 minutes, and it just feels boring. But me, I haven't had that problem. I'm going to assume those people have been playing on hardcore, although I was playing Gundam Extreme vs. Full Boost with a bunch of Chinese people. Also, the triangle attacks actually become an instant finishing blow at this point. So, if you want the fight to end immediately, that's the best way to do it. But you'll lose out on some parts if you decide to do that, which can be a blessing or a curse. So if you're just trying to get through, well, just, you know, do a finishing blow. But yeah. As I was saying, I was actually talking with someone who was having a lot of trouble playing through just on casual mode. And I'm playing on normal mode, and I'm just like, I'm just running through it, and I'm just having a good time. So I don't know what his problem was, because he was kicking my ass at Extreme versus Full Boost. And yet, I'm having a perfectly fine time here, and I'm playing on a harder difficulty than he was. So I don't know. Maybe the game's harder than I expected to be. Maybe I had an easier time because I carried through my progress from Gundam Breaker 2, and I have like 500,000 credits to spend. But chances are I'm going to find out what it's like to be just a normal player to begin with soon, because Gundam Breaker 3 is actually coming out in English at the end of April. So 2 months away, basically. So for most people, they'll be able to wait. Me, I wasn't able to. I'm a Gundam Breaker fan. I've played Gundam Breaker 1 and 2 in Japanese, and I'm playing Gundam Breaker 3 in Japanese just fine, just by translating stuff I need to with the Google Translate app on Android, and just figuring out the rest as I go along, because that's generally the way it works in these games for me. And I enjoy doing that. But for those people who want to play in English and actually have access to really good, like, English translations and abilities and stuff like that, in order to, you know, actually build a decent unit without having to rely on crappy Google translations and translations just in general and all that, and just figuring out the rest as they go. Hey, it's a sand rock! I actually recognize half these enemies, and it's great, because I've actually been getting into Gundam a lot recently. I've got like 15 of the bloody things built on my shelf, but yeah. I've actually got a sand rock in my wardrobe that I really need to get around to building, but I'm really disappointed they didn't make it in a 144 size. They only make it in MG, which is 1/100, but yeah. The game's coming out in English, and I can definitely understand if you want to play this game in English, because having everything in English is actually really nice, because there are some abilities, like EX actions and stuff like that, that rely on having specific parts equipped. So the only reason I can access the God Gundam's EX moves is because I'm using the God Gundam's arms and chest at the moment. So yeah, there are some EX actions which rely on that, and in order to find all of them and get the Platinum Trophy, you need to use all the different body parts and get the parts from that. So yeah, get the parts and get the EX actions from using the parts. Yeah, my analog stick is really fucking big at the moment. I really need to get this replaced. I need to talk to the guy immediately, but he won't answer me on Skype. But yeah. So, waiting for the game to come out in English is something I would recommend you do for 2 reasons. Well, 3 reasons actually, now I think about it. Reason 1, English will be a lot better for playing this game in general, just because you'll have, like, access to accurate part translations, so you can figure out what you need to get done. The second reason is that the game runs like shit at the moment, and a patch might actually fix it up, because it isn't that much of an enhancement over Gundam Breaker 2, and I can find it easy or hard to believe that they might have just buggered up the performance, and they might fix it up in the first couple of patches. So, you know, that's not that big of a deal, right? Also, number 3, we don't know the DLC details for this game yet. Gundam Breaker 2 was really good about this. Like, it was amazing about this. The way that game worked was that the patches included the DLC for free. You didn't have to get any sort of unlock key or anything like that off the Japanese PlayStation Store. So you could literally just play the DLC just by upgrading the game, and the only thing you would need access to the PlayStation Store for was the first print bonus, which was the Kamiki Burning Gundam and the a couple of other Build Fighters units, and the luck boosters. Now, this game doesn't have... Well, this game, you can actually get the... I hit the fucking wall. God damn it, me. In this game, you can get the Gundam Barbatos first print bonus parts via the Bounty Hunter mode, so you don't even have to worry about that. And you can also get the, what's the word I'm looking for? You can also get the... What's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember where I was going with that. So yeah, you can get the first print DLC fine, and you don't even need the luck boosters, because these enemies drop a lot of parts. And obviously when you go into the higher difficulties, you'll be getting better quality parts no matter what you do. So that's pretty good. We still don't know if any sort of like downloadable suits or downloadable stages will be coming with this. Because I'm hoping they include new downloadable stages, because they've actually reused a lot of stages from Gundam Breaker 2. And there aren't that many new units from Gundam Breaker 2 either. There's like 20, which isn't really that many, all things considered. I also forgot to talk about builder's parts, which is just applying stuff to the outside of your suit, which gives you different weapons to use as like your part of your sub weapons here. So I do have this I can use, which is kind of neat. And there are other weapons you can use, like cannons and stuff like that. But you can also apply like different visual customizations and stuff, and you can change their positions and all that. And it's nice. It's not too bad. That's basically what builder's parts are. They aren't that impressive. It gives you a little bit more visual customization, but I prefer just keeping everything like just normal and then just having the stat boost you get from it. But anyway, you do have, I mean, with the customization they've introduced with the builder's parts and the 20 new units, it's nice, but I would like to see more units. Like, there's a bunch of units missing that I really would like to see. Like, I haven't found a crossbone yet. I haven't found, there are a bunch of build fighters units which I would like to recreate that you really can't do. There's just a bunch of units missing from other series as well, which I'd like to see. And they're not here yet, and I would like to see them in, like, updates. And again, with the environments being reused from Gundam Breaker 2, I'd like to see more environments as well. And there's a couple of environments I recognize from Gundam Breaker 1 as well, which is interesting. Except, I would like to see Side 7 again. At least I think that's what the first arena you ever fought in Gundam Breaker 1 was. I would like to see that arena again, but yeah, either way, we don't know what they're doing with the DLC yet, and it might be worth holding off and seeing what they do with the DLC with the Japanese version, because they'll probably do exactly the same thing with the English version that's coming out in Asia in a couple of months. So, yeah. While I wouldn't recommend the Japanese version, at least for a couple of months, because, you know, English version and all that, it is worth the time to wait for the English version. But Gundam Breaker 3 itself as a game is really good. It's a lot more like Gundam Breaker 2.5, honestly. The steps between Gundam Breaker 1 and 2 were a bit of a revolution, because it changed almost everything about the game and made it a really interesting loot fest, which was interesting, but there were just a couple of things getting in the way of turning it into a full, like, really entertaining Skinner box style thing. This time around, they finished the journey, and it feels a lot more like Gundam Breaker 2.5 more than anything else. However, there are a couple of things wrong with it. Obviously, the performance and the fact that they didn't add that many suits, and hopefully they'll fix up the DLC. But the game itself is still really good, and I hope they update the Challenger mode to actually make it more worth my time. I hope they give me more environments to battle in that aren't just recycles from Gundam Breaker 2 and stuff like that. And I hope they give me more suits as free DLC like they did with Gundam Breaker 2. Like, most of the Endless Waltz stuff didn't come in until DLC in Gundam Breaker 2, and that was a little bit disappointing because the Endless Waltz series is some of my favorite designs. But, yeah. The game itself is great, and builder's parts aren't that much of an improvement, unfortunately. I mean, like, you can do really insane stuff with it, and just make yourself look insane, but you will end up giving up a lot of stats if you choose to go that way, which is a little disappointing, but oh well. Nevertheless, the game itself is still really enjoyable, and building your own Gundam, no matter how, like, close to the classic sort of styles they may be, or how crazy they might look, is a lot of fun, because you do end up putting a lot of effort into it. You end up ingraining a lot of abilities, and you end up developing a style that's all your own. And I have just completely disconnected the cable. Give me a minute. My mistake. Let's do that again. So, the game itself is fantastic. And is that a Barbatos? No, I don't think it's a Barbatos. I think it's a definitely one. I'm still having trouble telling apart the more generic designs, the red, white, and blue and all that. Also, that's a lovely sword. Hopefully this will be the last monolith so I can wrap up my opinions on this game, but yeah. The games themselves have also received some pretty heavy system overhauls as part of patches. So hopefully they'll be able to, like, fix up a few things. Like, maybe they'll make builders parts give you the same amount of stats they normally would anyway, like, just as decorative. Or maybe they'll make it so that Challenger mode isn't completely worthless. But, yeah. Waiting for the patches at the same time while waiting for the Hello, I don't recognize you. What are you? You're a GPO-1FB, right? I've fought these guys a couple of times already. Turn on, Hyper Gundam mode. And with all of the new changes and all that, and all the changes that might be coming in a new patch, then it is a good idea to wait. But at the same time, the game itself is really good, and even when the English version comes out, I'll probably tell you to buy it anyway, just because Gundam Breaker 3 is just that good. So, I have, like, zero problems recommending this game. If you're absolutely desperate to buy it now, it won't be that big of a deal, because they probably will do patches and, like, free DLC later on, because they did with Gundam Breaker 2. Why would they go backwards on that? But, yeah. Also, the missions really are pretty damn long, aren't they? I guess I just start having so much fun and I get into a trance and just beating the shit out of Japanese fighting robots that I don't even notice. Just, I am really having a lot of fun with this game. And the changes they've made from Gundam Breaker 2 are pretty much all for the better. Well, almost all for the better. It would be nice to be fighting in the Gundam Cafe again, like... The Challenger mode actually puts you in the Gundam Cafe, but there are no missions that take place inside it. So, it would have actually been really neat to have all the player-focused missions take place in the Gundam Cafe, like they did in Gundam Breaker 2, but... Oh well. Game itself is... English? The game itself is still pretty damn enjoyable nonetheless. Got a bloody Zeong there, and I'm pretty sure that's a crossbone on the front of the other one. Man, the missions in this game really are long, aren't they? Oh well. People will probably appreciate the gameplay. It would be nice if I could, like, swap weapons halfway between just so I don't get bored with the current weapon I'm using, but... Nitpick. Nitpick. I really don't have that much else to say about it. That actually went really well. I had mostly new stuff to say for like 50 minutes. That's kind of a record for me. Oh, hang on. I'll get the instant kill in. Thankfully you don't have to do the, what's the word I'm looking for? Thankfully you don't have to, like, actively be next to the enemy and hold triangle and wait for a 2-second animation to get the instant kill anymore, which is a, or even just to do this downward stab, because it wouldn't be an instant kill. It'd just be a, it'd just do a bit of extra damage. In this game, it's an instant kill, and it's much better for it, because you just cut most of the long-ass fights short if you want to, and it's really nice. Watashi no Batsu. If I know my Japanese correctly, I would translate that to why are you punishing me? Because I know that Batsu stands for punishment, and I know that Watashi means I, so, yeah. I'm actually starting to learn Japanese just by listening people use it. Also, it's a cute girl saying it, so, you know, why wouldn't I listen? But, well, if they were talking shit, I wouldn't listen, but anyway. It is a bit cathartic, isn't it? Just beating the absolute bejesus out of a poor girl. Taking all the parts. God, we're still not done? I mean, usually we're done by this point, but... God, these missions really do get long. Hopefully this will be the final area and we can actually get this video wrapped and done, because it's going to be an hour long at this point. Yeah, this is the final area. There's no gate to another area, so... Also, that kind of looks like... It's not an Astray, but it's got the Astray's backpack and shield on, which is a little weird. Final monolith should be showing up as soon as we clear out this set of enemies. But yeah, Gundam Breaker 1 was originally the quintessential Japanese import, because it was easy to understand even in Japanese. Gundam Breaker 2 became the quintessential import when it made basically everything easier and actually, like, made stuff make a lot more sense. Gundam Breaker 3 will now become the quintessential import, not only because it does everything Gundam Breaker 2 does but better, but it's also going to be in English in 2 months. So, yeah, that's great. It's awesome that this series is finally getting an English language release. That, and it increases the chances that this game will actually be brought to the United States shores sharply. Because we never thought Gundam Extreme vs. Force would ever show up here, despite the fact that that game may be terrible. But it's actually going to show up here now. I'm surprised they're not going to... I'd be surprised if they didn't do Gundam Breaker 3, because it's got a PS4 version as well, so... Yep. Perfect Strike Gundam, and I didn't recognize what the other one was, but it tends to be two of the same one. Yep, Perfect Strike Gundams. I'll turn on my awakening mode for this. But yeah, the fact that this game's getting English language release somewhere means that we actually stand a chance of getting it. Although, who knows, maybe they'll just choose not to localize the Vita version for whatever bloody reason, despite the fact that they're going to do it for God Eater Resurrection and God Eater 2 Rage Burst, because this is a Namco game. Or rather, this is a Bandai game, because Bandai and Namco are two different, what's the word I'm looking for, entities in Japan. See, look at that frame rate, good lord. It just disappears sometimes, but the controls are still responsive. It's just a pain in the ass seeing some of the bigger guys try and attack you when the frame rate is literally single digits. Hopefully they'll bring this to the United States and I can say I own three copies of Gundam Breaker 3, 2 physical and 1 digital, but yeah, I do plan on importing the English version. I will give you my opinions on that, because I imagine they'll have released at least 1 or 2 big patches by the time the English version comes out, right? So it would behoove me. Also, you can order around your AI compatriots using the radio system. You can tell them to stop in place, focus on one guy, hold their position, stuff like that. Not too bad. And that's also an improvement from Gundam Breaker 2, because Gundam Breaker 2 really didn't have much in the way of ordering AI around, but this game makes it a lot more simple. So yeah, Gundam Breaker 3, improvement on everything Gundam Breaker 2 did. Well worth buying when it comes out in English, either way. Like, hopefully they'll do, like, the DLC for it as game updates, so you don't have to worry about changing your region, but yeah. Goddamn fantastic game. So satisfying just to watch it pop up in the middle. Uncommon. Exclusive. Rare. And the best part is you don't even have to worry about those rarities. You just need to worry about the rarities for their abilities, because you can literally level up every piece from just a regular quality piece to the top level rare quality just by adding new abilities and merging rarer parts onto it. It's really nice. But anyway, let's get that kill in so we can finish this off as fast as possible. There we go. Also, I love how the SD Gundam has a really mature voice and it doesn't fit him at all. Like, look at that jolly little walk, and the fact that he tripped over and he had stars above his head. That's adorable. But anyway, please tell me that's the last monolith. Yep. Thank God for that. So now we come to the end mission screen where we find out what EX attacks we got and all of that from Gundam Breaker 2. And you can also come here and, like, multi-select and sell items if you don't want to deal with, all sorts of stuff. But yeah, I got a bunch of ace points, bunch of money. It doesn't really affect how much money you earn, the amount of ace points you have. So yeah. So if I press circle, I can get these items. Or was it square? No, it was square. Of course it was square. But yeah, now I can sell everything that I don't want. So I can sell all these for 2400 GP. And you can do that with every one, or you can just save it for later. Also, yeah, you can see plastic and cubes and all that. They all sell for stuff. But yeah. And, ooh, cutscene, perfect. This is how the story is portrayed in these games. It's just talking heads over the front of backgrounds, which is a bit weird because Gundam Breaker 2 had a lot of like 3D cutscenes. Gundam Breaker 3 had a lot of 2D. Gundam Breaker 2 had a lot of 3D cutscenes. Numbers. But this game has a lot of just these 2D talking heads cutscenes, which is a little disappointing, but it's a story. What do you expect? But yeah, I skipped these for the most part, so not important. Loading, loading, loading. Loading, loading, loading. That was a look at Gundam Breaker 3. Despite the fact that this series might be playing to its roots a bit too much. It is still getting a lot of definite improvements game after game. And Gundam Breaker 3 is definitely worth playing. It is definitely worth starting with if you're new to the Gundam Breaker series. But again, if you want English and you want to see what they plan on doing the DLC via updates and stuff like that, waiting 2 months for the English version to come out definitely isn't that bad of an idea. Nevertheless, this game is still great, and I would recommend it to anyone who's interested in picking it up either way. This has been Blue Maxima, and I'll see you all next time.